Let me tell you something. Not everything in this world is light and love. Sometimes in this life, you've got to know how to walk through the shadows without losing your soul. Not every battle is fought with fists, and not every enemy shows up with a weapon. Some come smiling, some come wrapped in trust. And if you don't know how to protect your mind, if you don't know how to protect your mind, if you don't know how to move strategically, you will be used, abused, and discarded like you were nothing. You see, life doesn't just reward the kind-hearted, it tests them. And some of you listening right now, you've been tested too long. You've been manipulated by people who smiled in your face and whispered lies behind your back. So now it's time you learn what they already know. It's time you understand the game they've been playing. This isn't about becoming evil. It's about becoming aware. This is about power and how to use it with intention. So open your heart, clear your mind, and listen closely. Because after today, you'll never look at people the same way again. Let's talk about the 7 dark manipulation techniques and how to master them before they master you. Number 1, the mirror effect. Let me ask you something. Have you ever met someone who just got you instantly? Someone who seemed to understand your rhythm, your vibe, your energy, like they'd known you forever? That wasn't fate. That was the mirror effect. The mirror is powerful. It's not loud. It's not forceful. It doesn't command attention, but it connects. It whispers to the human soul, you are not alone. You see, people don't fall for strangers. They fall for familiarity. They fall for people who reflect back the parts of themselves they love most, or maybe even the parts they're trying to hide. The mirror doesn't need to manipulate with words. It manipulates by resonance. And when you master this, you'll never need to chase approval again. People will feel pulled toward you without even knowing why. When you mirror someone, you don't just copy their words. No, that's shallow. That's surface level mimicry. A master manipulator goes deeper. You reflect their belief systems. You match their values. You subtly align your body language, the tilt of your head, the pace of your speech, the emotional volume in your voice. You shift your energy to meet theirs. You listen to their fears and respond with understanding. You feed their ego without flattery. You don't become them. You become the version of you that feels familiar to them. That's the power of the mirror. It says, we are the same, even when you're nothing alike. And in a world full of loneliness and performance, that message is irresistible. Think about it. The most dangerous manipulator doesn't look like the villain. They look like home. That's what makes the mirror effect so dark, so powerful, so dangerous in the wrong hands, because once you reflect back someone's identity, they start to anchor themselves to you. They begin to trust you, not because you earned it, but because you made them feel understood. And when a person feels understood, they'll hand you their secrets. They'll tell you their pain. And if you're not careful, if you don't respect their trust, you can destroy them. But if you're strategic, if you're disciplined, you can use that connection to guide, to lead, to influence without force. Because once the mirror is in place, they'll follow themselves through you. But this is where it gets deeper. The mirror effect doesn't just work on strangers. It works especially well with people who crave validation, with people who never really had someone see them. You walk into their life and you reflect back the version of them they wish the world accepted. And when you do that, they get addicted. They start seeking your presence like a drug. They begin to need you to feel seen. You become a mirror they don't want to shatter. And if you ever pull that mirror away, if you stop reflecting them, they'll panic, they'll chase it, they'll beg to be seen again. And now you hold power. Not through domination, but through perception. Let me break it down even further. Every person you meet is walking around with a silent question in their heart. Do you see me? They might not say it out loud. They might act tough. They might wear confidence like a mask, but underneath that, they are looking for reflection. And when you show up, matching their tempo, understanding their humor, sharing their values, their heart opens. They feel like they found someone who finally gets it. And that's where you gain ground. That's where influence is born. You're not manipulating their mind. You're manipulating their connection to themselves. And once that's in your hands, you have access to their decisions, their loyalty, their inner world. But listen to me closely. The mirror effect isn't about becoming fake. It's not about lying or shape-shifting to fit in. It's about choosing what version of yourself to show. See, we're all multidimensional. We've all got sides of us that can match different energies. A real manipulator doesn't pretend, they select. They select which part of themselves will best reflect the person in front of them. They adjust without losing their core. They guide the interaction without ever looking like they're in control. That's the beauty. That's the deception. You're not being someone else. You're just choosing strategically who to be. And don't think for a second that this is only about influence in conversations. No. The mirror effect works in business, in leadership, in relationships. You walk into a negotiation, reflect confidence, calm, control. You sit down with someone broken, reflect patience, empathy, tenderness. You lead a team, reflect passion, clarity, certainty. You become the emotional tone setter by being the emotional reflection. They don't even realize they're following you because they feel like they're following themselves. That's the dark brilliance of this. You never push them. You just position yourself as their inner compass. And once you're in that position, there's almost nothing you can't get from them. So remember this, people aren't looking for the loudest voice in the room. They're looking for the one that makes them feel recognized. They're not following the most powerful person. They're following the one that mirrors their identity. That's why the mirror effect is the foundation of all influence. It's the quiet, unseen manipulation that makes people open the door and invite you in. And once you're in, you decide how deep to go. You decide what to do with that trust. You can use it to elevate people, or if you're cold enough, calculated enough, you can use it to control. That's why it's dark. That's why it's dangerous. But once you master it, you'll never chase influence again. It'll chase you. Number 2, the silent strategy. Do you ever sit in a room with someone and feel the weight of words that were never spoken? Silence, my friend, is not empty. It is loud. It is full. It is charged with energy that rattles the nerves of the unprepared. You want to shake someone? You want to make them question, chase, unravel? Don't yell. Don't explain. Don't beg. Go quiet. That's the strategy most people never learn because they're too afraid of what happens when they stop talking. They think silence means weakness. They think silence means defeat. But let me tell you something. Those who know how to master silence know how to control a room without saying a word. Because silence is not the absence of power. It's the display of it. When you go silent, you become unpredictable. And the unpredictable man is the most dangerous man in the room. The person who doesn't react, doesn't defend, doesn't explain. They drive people crazy. Why? Because most folks are addicted to control. They want closure. They want to know what you're thinking, how you feel, what move you're about to make. But when you go silent, you strip that control away. You make them sit in their own discomfort. You force them to listen to the echoes in their own mind. And that's when the real manipulation begins. Because now they're doing the work for you. You don't chase with silence. You pull. You pull their thoughts toward you. You make them remember every word you've ever said and wonder why you're no longer saying them. You make them replay every conversation, looking for the moment things shifted. You don't need to raise your voice to make a point. Sometimes you just need to withhold your presence. And that void, that vacuum of energy, it gets heavy. It gets loud in the hearts of those who once depended on your words, your comfort, your validation. Silence becomes the ghost of you, haunting them with everything they lost and everything they didn't appreciate. Think about this in relationships. Somebody disrespects you, hurts you, takes you for granted. What do they expect? A reaction. An explosion, maybe even forgiveness wrapped in emotion. But what if they get nothing? No call, no text, no closure, and you disappear into silence, not to be petty, but to disarm. And in that silence, you shift the power dynamic. Now they are left with the weight of what they did. Now they are begging the silence to break. And when they start talking to fill the void, that's when they start revealing their guilt, their fears, their insecurity. All because you chose not to play the game out loud. And it doesn't stop with personal situations. Silence is powerful in business, in leadership, in negotiations. You want to shake someone in a deal? Don't rush to speak. Don't be the first to break. Ask a question, then go quiet. Let them fill the silence. Because most people fear it. They fear what it says. And in that fear, they start offering more than they should. They reveal things they didn't plan to say because silence forces a confrontation with themselves. It's uncomfortable. It's pressure. It's control disguised as nothing at all. But to master it, you've got to be willing to sit in that stillness without flinching. The real magic of the silence strategy is that it gives you time. Time to observe, time to assess, time to control the flow without being obvious. You don't need to manipulate through noise. You manipulate through absence. While they're panicking, you're planning. While they're reacting, you're resetting. And here's the kicker. Silence makes people project. They start writing stories in their own head about what your silence means. Maybe he's mad. Maybe she's done. Maybe they know something I don't. They fill the void with their own fear. And when that happens, you don't even have to do the work. They do it to themselves. Some of the deepest lessons in life don't come through what's said. They come through what's withheld. Some people don't need to hear another apology. They need to feel your absence. Some people don't deserve your voice. They need to sit in the silence they created. And if you're bold enough to use this tool the right way, you become unforgettable, not because of what you said, but because of what you didn't. Silence makes you a mystery. And in a world full of people begging to be understood, the person who remains unreadable becomes the one they chase the longest. But don't mistake silence for passivity. It's not weakness. It's warfare. It's chess while they're still playing checkers. You see, silence buys you control, and control buys you leverage. And when you reappear, if you choose to reappear, you return on your terms. Now you're the one with power, because silence wasn't the retreat. It was the strategy, the repositioning, the message they never expected. You didn't explode. You didn't crumble. You didn't chase. You let the silence speak for you. And sometimes silence screams louder than any voice ever could. Emotional redirection. Let me tell you something about power, true power. It doesn't always look like domination. It doesn't always sound like shouting. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it cries with you. And sometimes it steers your storm into a calm sea without you even realizing you've been turned around. That's emotional redirection. This is where a true manipulator, one who understands the dark arts of influence, doesn't force your emotions. No. They guide them. They take your anger, your sadness, your confusion, and slowly, silently bend it toward their purpose. Not by denying what you feel, but by shifting what you attach those feelings to. It's psychological Aikido. It's using your energy against you and doing it with a smile that makes you think they're helping, when in truth, they're steering. Now imagine someone who's just been betrayed, furious, trembling, tears hot on their face. That energy is volatile, it's combustible. But the master manipulator doesn't try to smother that fire. No, they redirect it. You're right to feel this way. You deserve better. They never saw your worth. But let me tell you who does. That moment right there, that's the redirection. They validated your emotion just long enough to hijack it. Now you're no longer looking at the cause, you're looking at the savior. And just like that, your heart hands over its trust, not because of logic, but because someone caught you in your collapse and pointed your fall in their direction. Emotional redirection isn't always obvious. Sometimes it's in the way someone frames your pain. You tell them your story, and instead of just listening, they label it for you. You're not angry, you're just passionate. You're not insecure, you're just misunderstood. They rebrand your emotions so it works for them. And what happens? You stop questioning your feelings and start seeing them through the lens they gave you. That's dangerous. because now they control the narrative inside your mind. You think you're gaining clarity, but in reality, you're becoming pliable. You're starting to think how they want you to think. And in that shift, they gain more than influence, they gain emotional access. This strategy shows up in relationships more than anywhere else. That friend who always seems to calm you when you're mad, but somehow always steers you away from confronting the truth. That partner who comforts you only if it leads back to needing them more. It's subtle, it's smooth, but it's strategic. They don't need to win the argument. They just need to win the emotional momentum. They don't change your mind, they change your direction. And the scariest part, you feel grateful while it's happening, because it doesn't feel like control. It feels like support. But support built on steering someone away from their own power is just manipulation dressed as love. The master of emotional redirection knows timing. They know not to fight you at your peak, because when someone's emotionally charged, you can't reason with them. You have to ride their wave. So they wait. They sit in your storm until the eye hits, and then they speak. That's when they slip in a new idea, a new story, a new identity that seems like relief. They offer you peace, not by fixing the problem, but by offering themselves as the solution. And if you're not awake, you'll start depending on them for every emotional escape. That's when they own your emotional compass. They don't need to force you anymore. You come to them voluntarily. Emotional redirection also works in moments of triumph, not just pain. You win something, you're excited, you're high on life. And they swoop in with a narrative. You couldn't have done this without me. See, when you listen to me, you won. It's sly. It's cunning. Because now they're tying your success to their presence. And without realizing it, you start believing you need them to succeed again. They're not celebrating you. They're claiming you. And if you're not mindful, their words become your inner voice. Their guidance becomes your leash. And every step forward starts feeling like a step toward them, not from your own strength. But there's one more layer. The darkest use of emotional redirection happens when someone uses your empathy against you. You confront them and they spin it. Suddenly, they're the one hurting. Suddenly, your pain becomes a guilt trip, and now you're apologizing. That's manipulation at its finest. You walked in with righteous fire and walked out feeling like you were the villain. That's not coincidence. That's redirection. They didn't win the argument with logic. They won it by rerouting your emotion against yourself. And the more you feel, the more they twist, until you start suppressing your own voice just to maintain peace. That's when they've got you. So what's the lesson here? Don't give your emotions away so easily. Don't let someone else define how you feel, or worse, what your feelings mean. Because once someone can steer your emotions, they can steer your decisions, your loyalties, even your identity. Emotional redirection is powerful because it works in the dark. It doesn't overpower, it repositions. And the one who controls the direction of emotion controls you. Stay awake. Learn to feel deeply, but reflect before you react, because in the hands of the wrong person, your emotions won't just betray you, they'll enslave you. Number 4, strategic vulnerability. You ever met someone who just gets you? Someone who opens up to you so quickly, so deeply it feels like fate? Like maybe the world finally gave you a break? Sent someone who knows what it's like to hurt, to fall, to rise again? And they do it with those soft eyes, that cracked voice, that little confession that makes you drop your guard like a broken sword. I've been there too, they whisper. And you believe them. That's not by accident. That's not just sincerity. That can be strategy. That can be strategic vulnerability. It's the art of opening just enough to make you feel safe, just enough to earn your trust, not to protect you, but to control you. See, manipulation doesn't always come loud and aggressive. Sometimes it comes wrapped in a story, a tear, a truth laced with performance. The manipulator knows if they show weakness, you'll offer strength. If they reveal pain, you'll lend compassion. That's human nature. That's how we're wired. And they use that wiring to build a bridge straight into your soul. They make you feel like you're rescuing them, when in reality, they're wrapping their influence around you like chains made of sympathy. Now, don't get it twisted. Vulnerability is not the enemy. But there's a difference between vulnerability that's authentic and vulnerability that's weaponized. When someone bears their soul too soon, too fast, too precisely, you have to ask yourself, why now? Why me? What do they want from this moment? Because the skilled manipulator understands timing. They know when you're most open. After you've shared your story, after you've cried, when your heart is wide open and looking for someone to understand it, that's when they step in and echo your pain. Not to relate, but to embed themselves in your emotional world. And once they're there, they don't need to force loyalty. You give it. The brilliance of strategic vulnerability is that it looks like connection. It feels like love, but it functions like control. They cry in front of you not because they're overwhelmed, but because they know it disarms you. They admit a mistake not to grow, but to make you lower your defenses. See, I'm just like you, they'll say. And that single sentence has the power to paralyze your instincts. Now your guard is down, your empathy is up. And the manipulator, they've just slipped the key to your heart out of your own hand without you ever noticing it. These manipulators don't just use their past, they curate it. They reveal just enough trauma to make you trust them, just enough flaws to seem real, and always at the perfect moment when you're deciding whether to let them in, they'll share their darkest hour with perfect emotional timing, right when you were thinking about walking away. That's no coincidence. That's choreography, emotional theater. It's empathy turned into a fishing line, and you're the one biting the hook. Because how can you walk away from someone who just exposed their wounds to you? How can you deny your comfort to someone who bleeds like you do? Strategic vulnerability also plays out in conflict. You confront them, you bring the truth, the facts, you stand in your power, and right when they feel the tension rising, they don't fight, they fold. I guess I'm just too broken. Maybe I'm not good enough for you. Now you become the comforter. Now you're on defense, they're on retreat, and the entire power dynamic flips. You started the conversation with clarity and ended it with guilt. That's the game. That's the hook. They didn't win the truth. They won your compassion. And sometimes that's more powerful than being right. You'll find this tactic most effective with people who have big hearts. The givers, the fixers, the ones who want to heal the world. Because manipulators don't just prey on the weak, they prey on the strong-hearted. The ones who'll stay up all night helping someone who cried just once. The ones who think love means never walking away from someone in pain. But let me tell you something. Pain isn't always innocent. Sometimes pain is a performance. And if you're not discerning, you'll keep pouring your love into a theater act that's been scripted to trap you. There are people in this world who will show you their scars, not to be healed, but to hook you. They know the language of trauma. They speak the dialect of brokenness. They've memorized the look of sincerity. And they use that language to create false intimacy. It's a fast track to trust, but trust that's not earned through consistency is a trap waiting to snap, and when it does, you'll look back and realize you knew it was too much too soon. You just didn't want to believe someone could use vulnerability as a weapon. But they can. And they do. Now here's the truth bomb. You're not wrong for being compassionate. You're not weak for caring. But you've got to protect your empathy with discernment. Not everyone deserves your rescue. Not everyone who cries is telling the truth. And not every sob story is innocent. You have to ask yourself, do their actions match their wounds? Do they grow? Or do they stay broken? And make you feel guilty for expecting them to rise. That's how you know. Because true vulnerability leads to healing. Strategic vulnerability leads to dependency. One frees you, the other binds you. So the next time someone opens up too soon, lays their soul at your feet like a bleeding offering, don't rush in to save them. Observe, listen, ask yourself, are they sharing to connect or are they sharing to control? Are they asking for help or laying a trap made of sympathy? Because a manipulator doesn't need strength to control you. Sometimes all they need is a well-timed tear, a carefully crafted confession, and a heart like yours, willing to believe that every cry is a call for love. Stay sharp, stay soft, but never let the performance of pain blind you from the truth hiding behind it. Number 5, the scarcity illusion. Let me tell you something about how people play with your mind. They don't always need to overpower you. They don't need to be louder, richer, or even smarter. All they need is to convince you that what they offer is rare. That's it. That's the play. Because the moment you believe something is limited, your time, your love, their attention, you begin to chase it like your life depends on it. This right here is the scarcity illusion. It's the art of making you think that if you don't act now, if you don't hold on, if you don't compromise, then you'll lose your only shot. That's not just persuasion. That's control. That's how someone makes you forget your worth and fight for what should have never been hard to get in the first place. You see it in relationships, jobs, friendships, even family dynamics. Someone pulls back just enough to make you feel the emptiness. They stop texting. They delay the response. They act like their presence is a prize. Suddenly your mind starts doing backflips. Did I say something wrong? Are they losing interest? I better try harder. And just like that, you've been manipulated, not with power, but with absence. You were convinced that their inconsistency meant they were valuable, instead of realizing their silence was actually disrespect. Scarcity makes average look exceptional. It makes a toxic partner feel irreplaceable. It makes a low-paid job seem like a dream. Why? Because once someone limits your options, they control your decisions. They show you one door, and they make you believe it's the only way out of the fire. And you walk through it with your head down, grateful for the chance, never realizing there's an entire hallway full of unlocked doors just around the corner. But you don't see those, because the illusion is that this one opportunity, this one person is your only chance. And the moment you believe that, they own you. This tactic works best on the desperate, the emotionally starved, the ones who've been told they're hard to love, the ones who've gone so long without affection that any drop of attention feels like rain in the desert. Manipulators love the hungry. They show up with crumbs and call it a feast. They cancel plans and call it a feast. They cancel plans and call it mystery. They withdraw love and label it standards. And while you're trying to earn what should have been mutual, they sit back and watch you dance for a spotlight they never planned to share. That's not love. That's economics. And you're the currency. Scarcity illusion makes you compete for someone who should have been grateful to have you. It puts you in survival mode in relationships. It makes you think you have to fight to be seen, to be heard, to be chosen. And when you're in survival mode, logic goes out the window. You're not making decisions anymore. You're reacting. You're begging. You're bargaining. You're breaking your own rules just to keep something you never had to chase to begin with. And the person on the other side, they're calm. They're distant. Because they already know. Scarcity doesn't just create demand, it creates obsession. The real manipulation happens when they give just enough to keep hope alive, but never enough to satisfy. That's the formula. A compliment here, a visit there, a memory you can't shake, followed by days or weeks of cold. They're teaching you to associate uncertainty with value. They want you addicted to their approval. So every time they vanish, it hurts more. Every time they come back, it feels like relief. You don't even realize you're in a cycle. You're not in a relationship anymore. You're in a slot machine. And you keep pulling the handle, hoping for that one sweet moment of connection that never lasts. And the truth is, some people know they're doing this. They've mastered the art of being just out of reach. They condition you to think their love is a reward. They teach you to believe their energy is expensive, their loyalty rare. But in reality, they're just feeding your fear of being without. They want you dependent. They want you to feel like nothing is ever guaranteed. Because the moment you think they could leave at any moment, you stop asking for more. You lower your standards. You tolerate the breadcrumbs. That's not love. But here's what I need you to understand. Nothing real is scarce. Not love, not peace, not joy. The things that are meant for you won't play hide and seek with your spirit. If someone truly values you, they won't weaponize their presence. They won't teach you to fear losing them. They'll show you why it's safe to stay. They won't disappear to make you chase. They'll show up, not just when it's easy, but when it matters. And the people who do that, they don't sell themselves as rare. They prove their worth through consistency. The moment you stop believing that someone is your only chance, you take back your power. You realize the world didn't shrink. You just got distracted by someone who wanted to look bigger by making your world feel smaller. But it's not. There's more love out there, more joy, more peace. There are people who will show up every day, not because you earned it, but because that's who they are. That's the life you deserve. Not one built on fear or scarcity or silence, but one built on abundance. But you only receive that life when you stop settling for people who sell their love in limited supply. So here's the question you have to ask yourself now. Who in your life is making you feel like they're doing you a favor by staying? Who is making you feel like love, presence, or kindness is some kind of currency they can raise or lower based on your behavior? And are you willing to finally see that for what it is? Not love, but manipulation. The scarcity illusion is powerful, yes, but it only works on those who've forgotten their value. Remember who you are. Stop chasing what's rare. Start embracing what's real. Number 6, divide and control. Let me tell you something real right now. The fastest way to conquer a crowd is to divide it. The fastest way to weaken a strong person is to isolate them. That's what divide and control is all about. It's subtle, it's silent, and it's dangerous. See, the person who uses this tactic isn't just trying to argue with you. They're trying to separate you from your lifelines, your friends, your family, your confidence, your sanity. Because when you're alone, you're easier to mold. When you don't know who's really in your corner, you start relying on the one voice that's still talking. And if that voice is the manipulator, you've already lost. Divide and control isn't about screaming. It's about whispering lies until you can't hear truth anymore. This strategy thrives in the shadows. It plays out in quiet suggestions like, I don't think your friends really care about you, or your family doesn't get you the way I do. These aren't just words. They're seeds. Seeds of doubt. And once they're planted, they grow into thorns. You start questioning everyone around you, thinking maybe they're against you, maybe they don't understand you. That's how the manipulator becomes your only source of validation. By dimming the light of everyone else. They don't have to attack the people you love, they just have to poison the connection. You ever notice how someone gets quieter when you're winning? How they suddenly act distant when you reconnect with someone they isolated you from? That's not a coincidence. That's control. Because to keep you under their influence, they can't afford you having too many perspectives. If you start getting advice from others, you might realize you're being played. So they create conflict. They turn people against each other. They twist words, stoke jealousy, manipulate the narrative so well that by the time you see what's happening, you've already cut off the ones who cared. And now, they've got you right where they want you. Alone and confused. Divide and control shows up in workplaces, families, churches, even romantic relationships. The manipulator plays both sides. They tell one person one thing and tell you another. Then they sit back and watch the fire burn. While you're arguing, defending, or doubting yourself, they're collecting loyalty points. They present themselves as the calm, wise mediator, when really they lit the match. It's evil, but it's effective. Because if you don't know who to trust, you're forced to lean on the manipulator. And when you lean on them, they rewrite your reality. You stop thinking for yourself. You might think, I would never let someone isolate me. But it doesn't always look like isolation. Sometimes it looks like love, like protection. Like, I just want what's best for you. They'll say, I don't like how they talk to you, or you're better off without them. And it sounds caring. But over time, you realize they don't like anyone in your life. Not your best friend, not your mentor, not your support system. The only person they approve of is themselves. That's not love. That's a slow erosion of your world until the only thing left standing is their influence. And let's be real. This tactic hits harder when you're already in pain, when you've been betrayed before, when your confidence is low, when you feel misunderstood. That's when the manipulator swoops in and says, they don't get you, but I do. And because you're vulnerable, that sounds like truth, but it's bait. And the moment you bite, they start cutting ties in your life. They make you feel like everyone else is a threat. Before you know it, you're arguing with your own reflection, unsure of who you were before they came along. That's the danger of divide and control. It doesn't just separate you from people, it separates you from yourself. This manipulation isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the absence of connection. They don't want to meet your people. They avoid your friends. They delay every interaction with your world because the more you blend your life with theirs, the more control they lose. They'll say, I don't do family gatherings, or I'm not really into hanging with your friends. And it sounds harmless. But over time, they've built a wall between you and your life. And when you finally look around, no one's left on the other side. Just them. And the only voice in the room now, theirs. But here's what I want you to remember. Real love doesn't divide. Real leadership doesn't isolate. Real connection expands your world. It doesn't shrink it. Anyone who tries to pull you away from your support system doesn't love you. They love having power over you. Anyone who turns you against your own people is not building with you. They're building against you. And if someone is constantly planting doubt about everyone in your life, it's only a matter of time before they plant doubt about you too. Divide and control always leads to collapse. Because once the separation is complete, the destruction begins. The way to break out of this manipulation is to reconnect. Reconnect with those voices that knew you before the storm. Reconnect with the people who loved you without condition. It might feel awkward. It might feel scary. But reclaiming your relationships is how you reclaim your power. Speak your truth. Ask hard questions. And when you do, you'll start to see the pattern. You'll realize the common denominator in the division wasn't your friends or your family or your coworkers. It was the manipulator who stood in the middle, whispering lies and calling it love. Divide and control is one of the oldest tactics in the world. From kingdoms to classrooms, from families to nations. It works because people fear being alone. And manipulators weaponize that fear to build empires out of broken people. But the moment you start connecting again, truly connecting, you become dangerous. You become informed. You become whole. And no manipulator wants that. So if you've been divided, now is the time to rise, to rebuild, to remember who poured into you when the world was silent. Because when you're connected, you're powerful. When you're supported, you're unshakable. And when you're no longer divided, you become undefeatable. Number 7, the illusion of choice. Let me ask you something that might shake you up a little. Have you ever made a decision that you thought was yours, only to realize later it was made for you? That's the game of manipulation. That's what number 7 is all about, the illusion of choice. It's one of the darkest techniques out there because it doesn't feel like control. It feels like freedom. And that's what makes it so dangerous. You think you're choosing your path, your partner, your peace. But every option in front of you was placed there by someone pulling the strings. The illusion doesn't trap you with chains. It traps you with confidence. False confidence. And by the time you realize you never had a real choice, the damage is already done. This strategy doesn't scream, it whispers. It doesn't push you, it guides you so gently that you don't even realize you're being guided. That's how manipulators win. They don't fight your decisions, they shape them. They give you 2 doors to walk through, but both doors lead to the same destination, the one they already chose for you. It's like a magician with cards. Pick any card, they say. And you do. But what you don't know is every card in the deck is marked. Every outcome has already been rigged. That's not choice. That's choreography. And the worst part, you feel proud of the decision. That's the art of the illusion, making you believe the power was in your hands the whole time. Maybe they gave you 2 job options. Maybe they acted like they were letting you decide where to go, what to do, how to live. But behind the curtain, they were limiting the field. They were feeding you thoughts, crafting scenarios, subtly leading you like a puppet toward the answer they already wanted you to land on. It's not always about saying yes or no. Sometimes the trick is in what choices you're allowed to see. You might think, no one controls me like that. But let me tell you, if someone ever made you feel guilty for choosing something they didn't want, they were never offering you a choice. That's not freedom. That's emotional blackmail wrapped in a smile. The manipulator says, it's up to you, but I'll be really hurt if you choose that. Or do what you want, but just know it'll affect us forever. That's not choice. That's psychological warfare. They're not giving you options. They're loading the scale with guilt until it tips in their direction every single time. And here's the kicker. This technique works best on good people, people with empathy, people who care, people who don't want to hurt anyone. Because when your heart is soft, you start shaping your decisions around how other people will feel, not what you really want. The manipulator knows this. They study your values. They know how to press your buttons without laying a hand on you. They use your compassion like a leash. And suddenly you find yourself saying yes to things your soul is screaming no to, just to keep the peace. But peace built on sacrifice isn't peace. It's quiet suffering. It's not always in big moments either. Sometimes it's in the smallest interactions. Where do you want to eat? It sounds innocent, right? But when your answer is always met with, not really, or I don't feel like that, eventually you stop choosing. Eventually you start waiting for them to decide and pretending it was your idea. Over time, your voice fades. Your will bends. You're in the room, but you're not in control, and you don't even notice. That's the beauty and the tragedy of the illusion. It doesn't take your power. It convinces you that you never had any. Now, why does this technique matter so much? Because once you master it, you can lead people without ever appearing dominant. You can shape conversations, outcomes, decisions, all while wearing the mask of generosity. But here's the ethical line. Are you doing it for growth or for control? Because manipulators don't want people to grow. They want people to obey. They want people to think they're free while living inside invisible fences. And when you use the illusion of choice to keep someone small, you're not leading them. You're imprisoning them. It's control disguised as care. And that's one of the most dangerous forms of manipulation on earth. People who suffer from this kind of manipulation often wake up in their 30s, 40s, even 50s, wondering whose life they've been living because their choices weren't really theirs. They were reactions to pressure, reactions to guilt, reactions to expectation. And when that illusion shatters, when they realize how many years they've spent dancing to someone else's tune, it breaks them. That's why this tactic, while quiet, is devastating, because it doesn't just affect what people do, it shapes who they become. It robs them of their voice, their clarity, their calling. The only way to break the illusion of choice is to get brutally honest with yourself. Ask, why am I choosing this? Is this my decision or someone else's desire? You've got to dig deep. You've got to check your motives. Because when your decisions are born out of fear, guilt, or pressure, they're not real decisions. They're responses. And a life built on responses is a life lived on someone else's terms. Take your power back. Make choices that make your soul breathe again. And if someone truly loves you, they'll respect those choices, even when it doesn't serve them. So don't be fooled by the hand that gives you limited options and calls it freedom. Don't be seduced by the smile that hides a leash. Choice is sacred. It's the foundation of identity. And anyone who tries to sculpt your decisions through fear, guilt, or confusion is not offering you love. They're offering you a prison. And the moment you wake up to that, the moment you stop choosing from their script and start writing your own, that's when the illusion collapses. That's when you rise. That's when you become dangerous again. As we come to the end of this powerful journey, I want you to take a moment and reflect. We've just uncovered the depths of manipulation, the subtle, calculated strategies that are designed to control, deceive, and exploit. The techniques we've discussed don't just show us how manipulators operate. They reveal the truth about the world we live in, a world where decisions are made, not always with transparency or honesty, but with the hidden agenda of those seeking to bend you to their will. You've seen the mirror effect, how people project back what you need to hear to manipulate you into believing they're just like you. It's a powerful tool. And then we delved into the silence strategy, where words become weapons of control, leaving you confused and vulnerable. Emotional redirection followed, reminding us how easily emotions can be turned against us, twisting our feelings into a tool of submission. You examined the vulnerability game, where manipulators expose their weaknesses to gain your trust, only to use that trust to wield even greater control. We also discussed the scarcity illusion, a tactic that makes you believe you're running out of time or opportunity, pushing you into decisions you wouldn't normally make under pressure. Divide and control, an age-old strategy of turning allies into enemies, all for the sake of keeping power in the hands of the few. And finally, we unpack the illusion of choice, perhaps one of the most insidious methods, because it feels so much like freedom. But let's be clear, manipulation is never about freedom. It's about control, and it wears the disguise of love, care, or even kindness. All these techniques have one thing in common. They prey on our humanity, our empathy, our desire to do good, to help, and to belong. They are subtle and calculated, often hiding in plain sight, and that's what makes them dangerous. They are the invisible chains that bind us, the silent whispers in the back of our minds that shape our decisions without us ever realizing it. They can leave you questioning your choices, doubting your strength, and feeling lost in a world that suddenly feels like it's not your own. But now that you know these techniques, now that you've seen the truth behind the veil, you're not helpless. Knowledge is power, and understanding these strategies gives you the upper hand. You can recognize when someone is trying to pull these tricks on you, and you can choose to walk away or stand firm. You can reclaim your power, your voice, and your choices. Remember, you are the master of your own destiny. No one, no matter how charming, persuasive, or manipulative, has the right to control your life. You are the one who decides the course of your journey. You are the one who decides what you will tolerate, what you will accept, and what you will reject. So as you move forward, take with you this knowledge. Use it to protect yourself, to stay true to your path, and to ensure that no one can take away your freedom. Stand tall, be aware, and remember that you are always in control of your destiny. Thank you for taking this time to learn, to grow, and to protect yourself. May you always be empowered to make choices that serve your highest good. God bless you.